Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magick Grove and our new weekly show, Tea and Magic. I'm super excited about this show because a lot of you have been asking for information, for guidance, and I thought what better way than to bring the amazing witches, healers, and magical people that I know onto the show so that they can share their guidance with you. And who knows, you might end up working with them. They are part of the Magick Grove as well because this is a community of people who are learning and studying particularly about the magic of nature, about the elements, and everything witchy 101. And that is actually our show today called Magic 101. This is the perfect place to start. And so I want to introduce my special guest who has been an amazing friend of mine for so many years. We literally talk every single week on the call about magic, about our lives, about our businesses. And I absolutely love her so much that I needed her to be my very first guest, Tiffany Rose. She is the CEO and creator of Majorly Arcana. She has a ton of things going on. So Tiffany, just like right off the bat, before we kind of start into the questions about magic, give us just a little bit about yourself and what you do, because you're like this multi-hyphenate rock star. Like when I think about you, I just think about the word rock star.
I feel that and I appreciate that. So I don't know, I call myself a pop art witch really because that's kind of how everything in my life flows out, is like I'm a witch and I'm an artist, and like my business is an extension of my art witchcraft, like my art projects are an extension of that, and like everything kind of flows out through that. Like right now I'm playing the character Cherry Godmother as I kind of teach magic, but you know, I plan on, how do I put it? I look at that as an extension of the pop art witch thing of playing with personas as magic, because I find all of that kind of endlessly fascinating. So in terms of what I do right now as Cherry Godmother, I just want to help people awaken their power and embrace their magic, because I think that a lot of people have been told that they're supposed to remain powerless, especially in the face of injustice. And I think that, you know, people are told like not to embrace what's special about them, like just to kind of, you know, dampen it down because it makes it easier for them just to move on in life. And I don't like any of that. Like I want to have people embrace what makes them uniquely them. And I think that, you know, everyone has magic. Magic is an experience of an individual's consciousness. And so by embracing your magic, you're also embracing yourself and like what makes you truly you, what makes you sparkle.
Okay, and I want you to share, you had a tagline. We put this game of like the 3 words, and you had such an amazing tagline that was all about standing in your power. And what was it?
It was awaken your power and embrace your magic.
Yes, I love that. So this whole entire conversation is going to be pretty much about that. I think that for most of us, there are a lot of people that are waking up. There are a lot of people that are feeling powerless. And in that process of healing, they're opening up to the universe, to the earth, to the elements, and mostly to themselves and the power that they have within. And I think we both agree that witchcraft, magic, all of these practices, they are a way of being, but they're also intentional practices that we use to enhance that power and to show the world that we are not powerless. And that's why we talk every week, right? Because we're great. So I just want to pause really quick and ask you what you're drinking, because we did a little matchy woo today. Tell me what you're drinking and what you're drinking it out of.
Okay. I am drinking so first off, if you guys are tea lovers, you absolutely have to go to adagio.com. They have amazing tea blends. You can also make your own blends. Like I'm working on like some of my own, like just in my brain, just a couple magic-y blends too. But this is a blend I made called One True Pairing. There's a little tin. And this is a combination of their Valentine's Day blend, which is like chocolate and rose, Earl Grey lavender, and Earl Grey moonlight with some rose petals and marigold flowers. So, and I'm drinking it out of my unicorn mug.
Yay, that's awesome. Okay, so I also have a unicorn mug, which is amazing. because I just thought that we were both like, I went to take a sip and you were like, hey, unicorn mug. Yeah, I'm drinking out of that too. How did you kind of discover magic? And how did you get started? Because I love your story. And was there a moment in your life? Because I think a lot of us are led to it, led to some type of magic. And like we said in the very beginning, which you guys will hear later, that it's about personal power. Magic is about discovering your personal power. And I feel that a lot of people get open to it in different ways, but a lot of times it's like a relative that studies it, or it could be a messenger or a deity that starts working with us. And so tell me a little bit about how you started, because I know that was it your grandmother that had like a whole witchy library?
It's my mom, actually. My mom has, so actually my grandfather was a minister, and my mom, he was a new age Christian minister. And so like my mom grew up with like a lot of that, like more of the hippie version of like Christianity, but she really didn't like a lot of the way that particular religion really degraded women. Like she really didn't like that, and that was something that just never resonated with her. So she and my godparent both, I don't know if they got into it together, if my mom got into it first. Like they've been friends for like over 40 years at this point, I think. So like not sure who got into who, but like by the time I came onto the scene, they had been well versed and well practiced. My mom had always had like books on witchcraft and magic and stuff around, and I grew up, you know, with my godparent telling me stories of like, you know, visiting the astral plane, and like my mom and my godparent explaining these really different esoteric topics to me, because a lot of the kids on my neighborhood, you know, they were all Christian as well, and I got teased for not being Christian, actually, because I just kind of came along with this like, oh, I have like no clue what that's all about. This is what I've been raised with, which is just these kind of, you know, more open ideas of what could be and possibilities of what different things could be. So my mom never forced me into this path. She just kind of had the books around. It's like, hey, if this is something that interests you, like go ahead and read whatever books you want. When I was 13, I picked up a Silver Ravenwolf book, which for those of you who know anything about witchcraft and magic, she's considered one of the fluffy bunny authors. I got Teen Witch, which is again considered a very fluffy bunny book, and I started to really get interested in Wicca, because I didn't even realize that you could just be a witch. I assumed you had to be Wiccan to do the witchcraft path. So I read that, got really into it, just kind of started practicing with like, you know, doing circles, doing sacred spaces, lighting incense, and just kind of being a little bit more present. And I kind of just identified with it, but I didn't really go super serious. Like I did the odd spell or two here and there, cast a spell that I actually met my ex-partner through, cast a love spell to bring some love into my life. I wanted for like 2 to 3 years. I ended up with someone for 11 years. Like worked a little too well. And when I was with him, I picked up Fairy Oracle again. And that really got me back to magic in a big way, because I kind of took, like, I kind of described myself for a long time as like, you know how like some Christians are like, you know, religious when they're kids, but then they kind of backslide when they're older. They're like, you know, they give lip service to being a Christian. That's kind of how I was with Wicca. Was I'm like, you know what, like I'm Wiccan, I kind of grew up with this, but like I'm not really doing much with it. I kind of feel like I backslid a little bit. I just kind of, you know, identify as that more so than anything else. When I got the Fairy Oracle though, oh my gosh, like I got so many like really interesting, really on point results reading for other people. I would constantly get poked and prodded, and that got me back into oracle cards, which got me into tarot cards, which got me back into regular magical practice. And by the time I got back in, my mom just had this giant library of books available. So it's just like whenever I want a book on a subject, I just see if she happens to have it.
I love that. So, you know, I posted this thing the other day that there are so many different kinds of witches. And well, first of all, I want to back up for a minute. You just said that you thought you had to be Wiccan to be a witch. Mm-hmm. And this is something I just posted on the wall as well, is that, you know, that's not the case. Wiccan is a religion. Being a witch is sort of like a way of life. And yeah. So how did you kind of discover that? Because I started the same way, as I dove in like, oh, this is Wiccan, it's the spells, it's the rituals, it's all of these things I have to do. And I've kind of toned down on that a lot. I really don't do a lot of spells or rituals. Really, it's just magic is just kind of a way of life to me. So explain that, like, how is magic a way of life to you? And what's the difference between, like, for you, Wiccan and being a witch?
Okay, so one, I would say that part of the reason that I ended up leaning more towards witch was because I didn't really identify with doing the whole god and goddess deity thing. And as you know now, I'm kind of starting to work with the goddess a little bit, and we're dipping our toes into that, and we're playing around. But back then, it wasn't something that really resonated with me, and I didn't really resonate with the whole organized-ish religious aspect of it. Not that I don't appreciate that, but I was just like, this is why I backslid and didn't really do anything with it. It was because of that. Once I just kind of started living more magically and just kind of like embracing like, oh, this is just what I am. I'm a witch. Like, it's this whole mindset shift. And for me, it is about magic, but it's also about, like, as I've mentioned, and you guys are going to eventually hear me say this over and over again, awakening your power, embracing your magic, owning your power. Like, being a witch to me isn't just casting spells. It's not just about nature. It's also about taking like full responsibility for every area in my life. And as something I talk about is the fact that I've dealt with a lot of mental health problems in my life. I'm very open about it. You know, I've dealt with depression, anxiety, and a couple other things. And things even back in college that I've had friends comment to me and admire me about and be like, I really think it's cool that you do this, is like, I've always put a lot of emphasis on doing the self-growth work. Like, ever since I can remember, I've always had an emphasis on doing self-growth work, and that I attribute to being a witch. For me, being a witch and magic is about that continual self-growth process and being open to growing, because a lot of people get really stuck in this, like, well, I can't ever change, and this is just me, and so accept me for who I am, and I get that, but, you know, what is you exactly anyway, if you want to kind of peel away these layers? I want to kind of go on a half tangent for a second. I apologize, but this is how I talk. I think one of the things that freaks people out about magic, and also in a different area of the self-development world, thought work, is the idea that you can kind of, if you want to, reprogram everything about your identity through like use of spell work or like thought work or something, and that you as a person are more malleable than you think. And I think that scares a lot of people from this kind of lifestyle path. But because I've always embraced that, I've always been able to play around with like the concept of belief shifting, of like, oh, I'm going to believe in this thing today just to see if it works, because I want to see if it brings results. And maybe it won't, and then I don't have to work with that anymore, but maybe it will, and I'll try it out for size. And that open-mindedness has led me to have, you know, again, more magical results in my life, just better self-growth overall. And yeah, so being a witch is just being responsible for everything I want to create in my life with an artistic flair, because I think art and creativity also really taps into that witchy magic. One more brief tangent, then we can ask some more questions. When you are someone who draws and you draw from the imagination, you get a visual in your brain. You get a really clear visual in your brain, and then you try to draw it out as exact as possible. And that to me is a spell. That to a lot of artists who are also witches is like a spell, a spellcraft. You can even put intention into a drawing like that. And I think that living your life as a witch is just doing one large artistic spell almost, in a way. And so that's how I want to kind of bring that all back.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I never heard of that. We've never talked about that. And I love that. Yeah, everything that you do, and I think it's really important for people to know that spells are a lot of times their intentions, but they're also spoken words. And it is so important to pay attention to what you say, to pay attention to what you think. You hear this a lot in the spiritual community when you're talking about manifestation. It's like you're going to manifest what you're thinking about. It's the same thing in witchcraft, like witchcraft, and not even just witchcraft. I'm going to call it magic and spell work. That the purpose of spells is to take an intention, is to take your power, your personal power, with an intention and create something. So you can call that manifestation, you can call that whatever you want, but that is essentially what it is. And without the clear intention, if your thoughts are all over the place, if your energy is all over the place, you can't actually make that happen, right? So when you're doing that work, like you said, it is so important to take care of, which I'm really going to dive in a minute here, to take care of your mental health and well-being, and also your body, because your body is the vessel that all of that energy flows through. So this is leading into the next thing I want to talk to you about, is that a lot of times when people start practicing, I know this was the case for me, when people start practicing magic, you are tapping into the universe and the energies around you. So we're not talking about working with gods or goddesses at this point. We're just talking about you as a single person with your energy tapping into the universe and all that's available around you. It could be the earth, it could be the cosmos, it could be all of it. That energy is pure. That energy is such a high vibration that once you start accessing it, things start shifting in your body. This is the spiritual awakening for a lot of people, because your body, if it is holding on to negative thoughts about yourself, if it is holding on to trauma, that is all going to get released, right? So as you are growing, if you're starting the practices, you will notice that your life maybe seems crazy at first. Not only are you waking up your mind, you're waking up your body, and it is a process of clearing things out so that that body and that mind can be clear vessels for that magic to flow through, so that you have pure intentions. So what I want to ask you, Tiffany, because we talk about this a lot, like we're very close friends, so we talk about a lot of personal stuff. And I wanted to ask you, like, what was your process of awakening? And like, talk a little bit about what you went through, maybe growing up, being different, to, having to let people go in your life. Because I know that's something that I've gone through as well. Is once I started down this path, my entire life shifted, everything changed, but it was a good thing because my mind and body needed to be clear and pure in order to create the life that I wanted. So I just want you to talk a little bit about that, because you do a lot of work with mind control and shifting of thoughts, but how did that process change your life? Like, how did you see, what were the big changes, I guess, that happened as you went through that sort of awakening and as you kind of learned practice throughout the years, learned magic?
It's a good question. So I would say I think awakening is like a process that you're going to go through over and over and over again. Like, you're going to awaken to one thing and then have new things happen. And I didn't really have like my biggest awakening until 2018. We're gonna put a pin there, and we're gonna get back to that. But before that, I hadn't really had super crazy awakenings. One time in my life that felt especially potent and magical was actually after I had done LSD for the first time, but I went into that practice with like this could actually be a really spiritual experience, because, I'm going to be seeing and like playing around and hacking with my brain and stuff like that. And so that was one kind of interesting, crazy, almost awakening experience. But then, I honestly, and it was no fault of my partners at the time, I just kind of disappeared into my relationship for a long time. And so like after I kind of had that awakening, I then focused on like, being in that relationship. And when that relationship ended is when I actually had like my ass handed to me awakening wise. And it wasn't just like, how can I put this? So when my partner and I divorced, he asked for a divorce in 2018. About 2 weeks before that, he had flown back to Germany, and I could feel, this process of breaking up, even though we hadn't officially put a label on it. Like, I could feel it within my body. And I remember my point of feeling my most awakening was on my bed, crying and screaming, like learning how to process all of my emotions that I'd never processed before. Growing up, I hadn't really focused on processing my emotions. I had self-harmed instead, and other ways of, self-destructing. And so this was the first time I didn't have anyone around. I just had to be on my bed, feel this intense emotional pain. And part of the thing that was the awakening wasn't just feeling the pain. It was having to learn how to unconditionally love someone so much that you could let them go and forgive them for the fucky shit they were doing at the time. And I apologize for the cursing, but like he was doing some fucky shit, and I had to, a lot of people tell me like, how could you ever forgive someone for that, for what they did? How could you ever, want to have this person in your life and still be friends with them? And it's like, because I'm a witch. Because I had to go through this process of awakening and unconditional love and forgiveness to realize that, like, I don't just love him for his place in my life. I love him because he is simply him, and him as simply him is someone who's doing these actions. But that doesn't mean that, he's an evil or bad person. And it doesn't mean that I'm an evil or bad person. It just means that this is the end of this part of our journey, and I can still love him as much unconditionally as possible without having to have him be a romantic partner in my life. And so I don't think that's most people's traditional awakening story, but that's like my awakening story, is like on my bed, crying my eyes out, stab pains in my heart, learning how to unconditionally love and completely forgive someone.
You know what, though? I think that is most people's story. And the reason I brought that up is because I feel not only, those of us that are interested in magic, those of us that are witches or whatever label you want to put on it, that's not really important. A lot of us feel very different and alone. We come here and we're growing up and we're like, I'm weird, I'm abnormal, I'm different. Like, I don't feel like I fit in. And even as adults right now, I'm like, I'm an alien. Like, I definitely am not from, and you know what I'm talking about. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. But part of the process of stepping into magic and learning magic and starting off with the tools, I think some people think of it as a conceptual level, like I'm going to make a spell, like I'm going to get some crystals. But when you really, really start diving into the energy, which is what magic really is, it is your power and your energy. Like I said, you find yourself needing to clear all of that out. And I mention that because I think a lot of people that are waking up now, that are interested in this, either they've gone through the process of feeling alone and feeling like they had to let go of a lot of people in their lives, or they will be going through that process soon as they dive into this. So I think it's just really important to hear your story and to hear all of our stories of sort of that. That's kind of the part of the process of being a witch, is really standing. I think I posted this. It's a woman that knows her power and knows how to use that power to create positive change. And you cannot get to that point in your life. You cannot stand in your power and be in that full power in order to put those clear intentions out there unless everything in your life around you is ultimately clear. And sometimes that does mean letting go of people that, don't believe in you. Like, let's be honest, we both have people in our lives that didn't believe in us, right? So that's a big thing. So let's talk about your tools. What tools did you use to kind of go through that process? And what tools do you use now on an everyday basis to access wisdom and to do magic? Because everything is so different. Some people do spells. I personally, I channel, I use my cards. Everyone's so different.
Great question. Before I get to that, I wanted to step back a couple steps. One, I love that it's a woman stepping in her power, but I'm going to say I think it's a person stepping in their power, because I do love the witchy womanness, but I think that one of the trends, trend isn't the right word, but like, I like seeing that, a witch can be anyone. And I also think that, practitioners of magic and people who call themselves witches, like, you can call yourself a witch and have a lot of different things that means. You can also practice magic and call yourself a lot of different things. I feel like I kind of talk about this concept of the ethereal goop, and we're all just playing around with the ethereal goop, and we can call ourselves what we want. We're just playing around with the ethereal goop. Two, going back to the awakening for a hot second, I realized that wasn't the only part of my awakening. Basically, since 2016, which, funny enough, I think numerology-wise was my 1 year, and this is my 5 year, is when this like gigantic wound kind of started opening. Like, I started learning about my business. 2017 is when the wound opened, and I started pulling out essentially this barbed wire of pain that I'd never really dealt with for years and years and years. And it culminated in 2018 with my breakup. But the awakening process was a lot longer than that, because I had to do a lot of this really deep seeded like wound work too, like stuff that I hadn't dealt with since I was 5 and trauma and pain from that, like, you know, stuff that had happened when I was growing up and shame I had felt that was covering up the stuff from earlier. So I just wanted to give that warning to anyone who's trying this, that like it's not going to be just one big moment. Like I said, it'll come in waves and stuff, and sometimes you'll have like a couple years where you're just like pulling out an old unclosed wound and you're pulling out barbed wire, but you'll finally get that little seed core of like, oh, there's some deep shit that I never dealt with.
Yeah, right. That's like every day. That's so every day.
Right. So tools I work with. One, obviously, I love me some tarot and oracle decks. I'm obsessed with them. And by the way, for those of you who are into tarot and oracle, I highly recommend subscribing to Ipsy and getting all the Ipsy bags for all your cards because it's the best thing in the world. On a day-to-day basis, I do that. I also do a lot of kitchen witchcraft. I have an altar set up. So, like, I have an altar set up that sometimes I'll go pull a card for the day and put it under my goddess statue and just be like, okay, here's the energy I'm focusing on. Like, right now, the strength card is on there because that's what I pulled with her deck. I do kitchen witchcraft. So, like, for example, I'll grab some mint from my herb garden and I'll mix that and I'll, like, macerate it while kind of thinking about prosperity, and then I'll add like lemon for purification and make myself some lemonade, or do that with like lemon honey water, or I'll stir my coffee clockwise with like cinnamon because I'm trying to bring in prosperity and abundance and stuff like that. Like just like little tiny things that I do here and there. Like one thing I got from my mom is like this concept of having a money dragon. So I have like I have a bank that's toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. And occasionally I'll just like rub a quarter with some cinnamon oil and stick that in there as I try to grow my abundance. So stuff like that are just like little small routines that I've got. Tarot, I think, is one of the most invaluable tools for learning magic if you resonate with it, because it teaches you about all 4 of the elements. It gives you that kind of storytelling process to play with the major arcana. It helps you get used to seeing things symbolically and archetypally, because that's like, and pattern recognition, which are all skills that you can use when you're starting to get deeper in some of the magic and stuff like that. So for me, I would say my main current magic tool is tarot and oracle cards, because that's what resonates with me. But toss in a little bit of the kitchen witchcraft too. Just toss it in there.
And for people that aren't familiar with tarot, I think we need to do a whole video on this.
Oh, yes,
we could talk all day. But what she's talking about, the major arcana, is there are archetypes. So there's like the magician, the high priestess, the empress. They go in numerical order, and it tells a story of a journey. So it starts off with the Fool, which is the very beginning of your journey. And I believe it ends with the World card. And so and when she's talking about storytelling and you are pulling these cards for yourself, you're doing readings for yourself, you're doing readings for others, these cards go through a process of like, where am I at in this journey that I'm currently on? It could be a life journey. It could be a business. It could be whatever it is that you're asking about. But they do, tarot is so beautiful because, you know, I have my deck right here that, you know, look at that. I just pulled the Tower. That's what's going on in the world right now. That's going to be a whole other show.
Oh my gosh.
but that's the storytelling aspect, is that, those decks bring you through whatever journey it is you're going through or you're asking about. And then, like she said, you've got the minor arcana, the swords and the pentacles, and those are the little pieces of advice that you get every day on that journey. So I would encourage anyone to get a tarot deck if you feel called and start playing with it. You don't know how much wisdom and channeling magic you have until you start playing with a tarot deck. Once you pick it up, you're like, wow, so much information is coming.
By the way, look what card I pulled.
Oh, the Lover's card. Yes.
So it also helps you learn numerology and play around with that too, because all of us have like, you know, different like life paths and stuff like that. And this is especially funny because Krista knows this is my life path card.
Yes. And that's actually my year card, is number 6. And the lovers could be about relationships, but it's also about choices. It's always, you know, making tough choices and choosing self-love. So if you don't mind, I just want to pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the chat is open. There's a little chat on the bottom of your Zoom if you've got Zoom open, and you guys are welcome to ask questions. So I will pay attention and I will look at that. But if anyone has any questions right now, go ahead and ask, because there's so many things that we can cover here.
Oh, and while we are waiting for some questions to pop in, I would like to ask you a question. How is your day doing? How are you doing?
My day? I am good. You know what? I woke up this morning and, you know, I have to admit, with everything that's going on, I'm struggling a little bit with my energy. We're going to talk about being an empath next week with Amber. I am an empath. I feel everyone's energy, even though I live in the middle of nowhere. And so I do find myself having to up my magical practices because, you know, and that could just mean like going for a hike in nature. By the way, that is a practice of just being outside, breathing in the fresh air. So this week has been really interesting because I just feel that, you know, even when I wake up in the morning, from when I wake up to go to bed, there's just this energy out there that feels a little chaotic, that feels a little crazy, and I pick up on it. And I do find myself every once in a while diving into it and like flipping out. So I don't know if anyone's going through that right now. You are not alone. Those of us that are empaths and that pick up on those type of energies, you know, it's not really easy to be dealing with what we're dealing with right now. And so those tools and those practices that you have that, you know, I'll be sharing on the board, I share every day in the Magick Grove, some tips, I try to keep them like really simple little tricks that you could do. They really, really do work. Just picking up a crystal, just picking up my cards, just touching my cards sometimes really brings me back to that place of good energy. Because again, magic is all about our bodies and our minds being clear. And like when I'm all, you know, fuzzy here and my body's kind of stressed out, I can't really perform to the best of my abilities in anything that I want to do. So that was kind of my long-winded answer, but it's been a really crazy week. Now we haven't gotten any questions. So what do you think about pulling some cards? Just like maybe the energy of this week. I don't know. I'm going to put us in gallery view here for a minute.
No problem.
What do you think about pulling some cards and just...
I can absolutely pull some cards. And I had a thing to say on the energy thing. Oh yeah, the empath thing. One of the things, especially for newbies, is like start like looking into what being an empath entails, because like one of the biggest things in my life was like finally realizing that like I was also an empath. And now I live in the middle of nowhere with like no near close by neighbors, and it's like relief. But like when I was in college, I had no clue this was a thing, and I was constantly exhausted and depressed. And aside from my own like mental health stuff too, like no clue that this was a thing. I didn't find out until like literally the weekend after I got married. I went I flew on a plane to my friend's other wedding to take photos, and one of the bridesmaids was like talking about being an empath, and I'm like, this is a thing?
Yeah, that's why it's a whole topic this week. It is a whole topic because it is a thing, and it's intense. and there's being an empath, and then there's being a highly sensitive person, which is added on top of it. It's actually in your DNA. The highly sensitive aspect is in your DNA. We do have one question.
Oh yes,
Nellie, our European love, she wants to know, as a tarot beginner, would you recommend to focus on the Major Arcana to begin with to practice, or are there any tips? I think, are there any tips when you're just starting doing tarot?
My tip would honestly be to draw a tarot card a day, and it's okay to use the books. Like, don't be scared of using the books.
They all come with little books that explain everything.
And Biddy Tarot is another wonderful online resource for like all the tarot cards. Galaxy Tarot is an amazing app. Like, that's actually would be my very first suggestion is, you know, draw a card a day from your own thing and from your books. But like, I have like a little card, a daily card on my actual phone that I get to check every day. And so it's a twofold method. Draw a card every day, look at what the official meanings are, but also like try to intuit your own meanings. So like draw a card, intuit your own meanings, and then look up the official meanings. See how close you got, but also like keep in mind that your meanings are valid too, because a lot of it's just it coming from your subconscious and what you're thinking of and what you're working on and stuff like that. Like some cards, like for example, okay, like the 7 of Swords, while overall that card could be like a thief or a liar, someone who's like taking the swords and getting out of dodge, I've also interpreted it for my own meaning as like, kind of taking knowledge and redistributing it amongst people that don't normally get access to that knowledge. Like, because it's all still very symbolism, but it actually is this deck. Oh.
Oh no.
Tarot is very snarky, by the way. Look what okay, so the bottom of your deck can be the shadow of the situation. And I was telling you how this particular deck kind of changed my meaning of the Seven of Swords. Look what's at the bottom of this deck right now.
I love that. Seven of Swords is like, yo, I'm here. I love that.
But like in this particular deck, this is kind of what made me think about redistributing it. Because instead of it being just like someone stealing swords, it's like someone who's like stealing swords from someone in a very high position of power who has lots of knowledge. And swords are air, words, knowledge, and knowledge is power. And so to me, this particular card, this exact card kind of spoke to it less of stealing and lying and more like taking this information and giving it out to people who like don't have access to the information.
Yeah, like a little bit of the Robin Hood effect. And that's
exactly.
I think, I actually just wanted to touch base on that. I feel that that's kind of a lot of what's happening right now in the world is there are people that are stepping up to be leaders that are like, hey, look, we are going to go out there and start teaching people how to gain their own power back because guess what? You can't have it all. This isn't the dark ages where everyone's ignorant and, can't get on the internet and don't have access to that. But it's not just knowledge. It's about that. Like, again, going back to magic, it's not just a concept. Having personal power is not just a concept. It's not about going online and being able to speak and post things. It really is about having that full self-power. And when you're working with magic, when you're opening yourself up to this, that is the growth, is you are going in that direction of gaining like a complete sense of self. I also wanted to say too, we were talking about tarot and you mentioned this earlier, so I didn't want to run by it, is if you're interested in tarot, go online or go to a store. It's even, well, maybe not right now because you probably have to go online, but if you could in the future, go to a store. You want to pick a deck to start with that calls to you. So you're going to be glancing around. You're going to be looking at, there's hundreds of decks out there. But like for me, I saw the Shadowscapes deck. I saw somebody using it on a video and immediately was like, I need to have that deck. Of course, I do tarot a lot, so I have like 100 decks. So it's okay to like have a deck and then change your mind and then get another deck and keep getting decks because your energy keeps changing and the decks and the creations that you're using kind of change with that energy. So there's decks I don't use anymore that were so powerful for me. But when you'll know because the deck will kind of call to you and then just sit with it before you even start using it. Just sit with it, start looking at the imagery, start looking through the book, just get acquainted like a lover to your cards. I mean, that's kind of what they are, right? They're your partners, they're your lovers, they're your again, they're your partners in magic and crime. I don't want to say crime. But yeah, and then start pulling a card a day.
Partner in shenanigans.
Magical shenanigans. I love that. We're all about shenanigans. So does anybody else have any questions? Just want to make sure we've got everybody.
Right. Oh, I actually wanted to riff off what you were saying about your first tarot deck. One, a lot of people ask this question. I see it asked constantly, which is, does someone else have to buy my tarot deck for me? Because that's been a big rumor within the magical community.
Yeah.
You can't ever buy your own tarot deck. You can absolutely buy your first tarot deck. You can totally do that. My suggestion for decks, one, again, I'm going to go back to that Galaxy app just because it has the Smith-Waite deck in it. Quick aside. It's the Smith-Waite deck because Pamela Coleman Smith did all the illustrations and she doesn't get nearly enough credit as she should for providing these illustrations. So I have Smith-Waite deck. But that way you have the traditional deck that a lot of other decks are based off of within easy grasp, especially if you don't want to like decks can range from like $20 to $40 to $60. And I have decks in all the different ranges. Like some are like independent decks that have been like published and are like first edition decks. Some are just like, like just a kind of smaller printer so they charge more. Some are like, mass printers so they can, print it for cheaper. And actually, I think I have an example of almost, like this is like a $40 deck, but then this one is like a $20 deck. Anyway, if you have the money, one, first get the one that you resonate with. Two, get a Smith Waite clone. Don't get the actual original one because the original one is really kind of hard to read. I have like one of those specifically just to learn off of, but I also have a clone just to learn off of.
We'll be sure that we post a link to this on the board so everybody knows. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. Definitely get one that you're drawn to, but also get the app for free where you can have the Smith Waite original deck with the original meanings, because then when you end up buying decks, because you'll get addicted like the rest of us, a lot of decks will still use those kind of similar Smith Waite meanings.
Yeah. So Linda's actually, Lita Beans is asking, I have my glasses on. Hello.
Hi.
For Tiffany, what tarot app is on your phone? She has the Galaxy Tarot, but it doesn't show the card of the day on her phone. So I think she's interested.
So if you have an Android, you need to go to your widgets, and that's how you can actually get it on your phone. You can do like a card a day on your phone, on your Android. I don't know if it'll work for iOS though.
Yeah. So I guess, Lita, if you have questions about that, if you do have an Android, we can put you in touch with Tiffany and she can probably help you get that on your phone. I know I have an iPhone. Sorry. I don't know how to use that. So we are running over a little bit, but I know we started a little bit late because of technical. So yeah, why don't we just maybe pull like one card each?
Okay.
Just about, let's pull a card. Pooh, are you, sorry if you have an iPhone. But you can also just pull a card a day. That's the beautiful thing is I feel even if you don't have it on your phone, handling the cards and pulling the cards and sitting with them away from technology is a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And so that is just as powerful because again, your system really isn't choosing it for you. You are feeling the cards. There's something about shuffling them and just sitting with your eyes closed and feeling like, what card do I need to pull today? That is all part of the magic. I mean, I don't think I've ever had an automated, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I've never had an automated card pull. I've always just done that myself. So that's not a bad thing, Nita.
And it's not like it's my only card pull. Like I do that as like part of like a couple different card pulls. Like I have like my card pulls, like when I like just daily card pulls because I just want to ask advice. I have that one that's just kind of automated because that one, I like the automated because it forces me to really go through each cards on the days that I forget to pull a card for myself. Because like most days I'll pull a card for myself, but on days I don't, it's like, oh, here's like just a little like, by the way, you're still learning new tarot cards every day. But while we have everyone here, I wanted to give everyone a really quick tip if they start doing tarot for a great way to just instantly know the meaning of a card. And it's not gonna be the traditional meaning. But like I said, it's a combination of the both that you want to have, your own meanings that you're attaching to the cards because that'll get you closer. Because some decks will give you different meanings to different cards too. Yeah. And some decks will come with unique cards. But in fact, I will show you this exercise with a card that I'm going to pull right now. And this is the method that I call going into the card. And I don't know where I got this method from. I forgot who I learned it from. I apologize if you end up watching me and you're like, hey, that's my method. Like, you can have the credit for it. So let's see. An appropriate card, because this is my card of the year, the Hierophant. Hierophant? I'm not sure, but it's the 5 card. It's my number for the year. So if you are pulling a card, you've never known the card before, and you want to get the advice from your subconscious or learning patterns or just from the imagery, you want to imagine yourself in a big, blank, empty room. I usually imagine it as a black room. And then you see a screen shining in front of you like a monolith from, I think it's from 2001, like a big giant monolith just in the middle of this big black room, and it's shining, and it's going to be your card, almost like a doorway, and you're going to walk right up to the card and you're going to go through it as if you're going into a new scene. You're going to go into the scene and you're going to walk into the scene, and then you're going to ask the characters for advice. You're going to look at the scenery. You're going to see how it smells. Like in this particular case, this one's a little bit more beachy of a scent. It's definitely like a cliffside rock kind of thing. And I might be a little too nervous to be able to ask this particular Hierophant for advice because she got herself there kind of studying and thinking and focusing. She got a couple other people there. And I'm a little bit too nervous to ask for some advice all of a sudden because I usually do this by myself. But that's a good method for kind of getting to know a card and getting to know your subconscious and getting to know like what yourself is trying to tell yourself. So give me 2 seconds and I'm gonna pop into this card and tell you what she's telling me to tell y'all. Oh, don't be afraid. It's safe. Okay.
I think that message is for you.
That message might be for me.
as you being the teacher. Yeah.
I know, right? Don't be afraid. It's safe.
But we also asked about the energy. We also asked about the energy of everything that's happening right now. So that is a good overall message, I think, for everyone.
Well, speaking of message for everyone overall, we've got the 5 of emotions, which is the 5 of cups in the traditional deck. And normally when this is upright, this is what I like to call the crying over spilled milk card, because she's like looking at the 2 cups that have spilled, the 3 cups that have spilled, and she's got like a couple more cups that are still full. And that, as a nation, I feel like we all are really feeling, because we're all really focused right now on all these things are taken away from me. All my outside activities are taken away from me, and not, wow, we live in such an advanced, safe society that we can just go inside for a couple of weeks. And for the most part, there are people who are going to be affected, but for the most part, a lot of us are safe. A lot of us are sheltered. A lot of us still have access to like hot water. And like, those are just like little everyday blessings that we take for granted when something big like this happens. And that's not to, by the way, that's absolutely not to diminish what anyone's going through right now. I don't want to diminish anything that anyone's going through right now. But, I think that particular card is reminding me, at least right now, just to be a little grateful for the fact that, I'm at home, I've got hot water, I've got plenty of food, and I'm in a position to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's really interesting because I pulled the sun card.
Ooh.
So I think, I don't know if you guys can see that here, which really ties into that. And the sun is such a beautiful card. So the sun is my card. I am a sun seed. That's the card I always pull for readings. But it really does mean that like the sun is all the luck in the world. It's that the sun is shining. Think about all of the sun gods and the sun itself as a cosmic, celestial body, that you are warm, you are safe, the sun is shining on the situation, everything is going to be fine overall. So whenever you see this card in a reading, it means that whatever it is that you're asking about is going to be fine in the long run. That again, the sun is shining on that situation. It's bright, it's cheery, it's warm, and the sun is here to comfort you. I also see that kind of what I'm getting right now is make sure that you go outside. Make sure that you are outside feeling the rays of the sun. I know it might be a little bit cold where some of you are at, but go outside and just make sure that you get some air, that you get nature, that you're accessing the outdoors during these times, and you're not just holed up inside, because a lot of times that kind of kicks off our anxiety and our depression and our mental state, and our mental health suffers if we're indoors all day, and especially if we're by ourselves indoors. And I think all of us have access to even like open a window in your house, look outside, watch the birds, something along those lines. But that's kind of what I'm getting right now.
It's funny that you mentioned that you get the sun card a lot, because when I was doing the pull for the 40 Servants Oracle, which is not a tarot deck, an oracle is different than a tarot deck, and that an oracle is its own system. Like this one, the 40 Servants, is 40 cards that all have sigils on them, which are like magical symbols that you can tap into. Yeah. So that's its own system compared to the tarot, which is very specifically the 78 card system, sometimes with a bonus card, but usually using, the 4 elements or versions of other things that they're calling that basically are still the elements. Like in this deck, the cups is the emotions card, whereas this one doesn't have pip cards. It's all Majorly Arcana, but it's like 40. So under the seer card, which is what I got for us, which makes sense, this shadow of the situation is also the sun.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
But in this deck, it's a little bit different, and it's more about like shining as bright as you possibly can. Yeah. And I think that was the ping I got when I was listening to you, is like, that's also what people can be doing right now, is like, we think that we have to kind of be hidden away, but we actually might have an opportunity to shine as bright as possible. Like we're giving a chance to like, just take some time and shine.
Yeah. And there are so many people that need help. I mean, I think right now there are a lot of people that woke up previous to this, and a lot of people that have already been practicing their craft. That doesn't have to be magic. That could be healing. That could be teaching. That could be anything, art, whatever it is that you're doing in your life, whatever it is that you're mastering right now. I think that that's a good sign that that is needed right now. So now is not the time to hide. There are a lot of people that are being pushed forward to lead, to start tribes, to start networks. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now with the Magick Grove. I felt that calling for so many years. I was going through my own stuff until literally like February. And I was like, all right, the universe was like, you're ready, like do it. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing it. And that's probably why I get the sun card all the time too. It's like, okay, it's your chance. And I'm saying that for everybody watching, for everybody on the call right now, and for everyone that is watching this later. Tiffany's right. Like, this is your opportunity to shine. And even if you're not stepping into a leadership position with a mass of people, you individually shining, allowing yourself to be seen, allowing yourself to be fully, authentically who you are. And that in itself creates such a radiance. That's how you find people that are similar to you. That's how you draw in your tribe. 'Cause I know that's usually a question for a lot of people that are coming out of an awakening, is like, wow, I did this all by myself. I was so alone. And now's the chance to go find those people. And it is so easy to connect with people online right now. And when you are yourself, when you are shining, when you are that sun, when you're shining bright, you are going to attract people to you. Again, it could be as leader, it could just be as a normal everyday person that is just there to shine. Yeah.
And really, I think that's one of the other things is I think it's time for everyone to share their gifts. And some people might need to discover their gifts. And part of discovering your gifts is just messing around and playing around and trying all sorts of different things and kind of seeing what sticks to the wall and like where your gift is. 'Cause I didn't realize that okay, I grew up in a family where I have friends and family, some people just know things, some people see things, and I never had such a strong gift like that, and I just kind of had to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm really good at tarot. Oh, I just kind of innately get this.
Yeah.
And I had to come back to it. I got my first tarot deck when I was 13, and it just turns out I didn't resonate with that deck I thought I did, and I never really could get into it. And once I started buying more decks and playing around with them and stuff like that, it's like, oh, I have a gift for this. Okay, so that's where this is. And I think that'd be my message to all of you too, is if you know your gift, share your gift. If you don't know your gift, just start playing around and trying things out and just see what feels good and what makes you happy. And also that you kind of get that, oh, feeling with I can't really describe it any other way.
No. That is so important, is people are always wondering, what's my path? The path is going to feel right. It's going to resonate with you. Even if you're I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I kind of think I know what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to get there. Start with the baby steps that feel right. And anything that doesn't feel right, just don't do it. Get rid of it. It's not even that complicated. So yeah, you pick up a deck and you're like, wow, this feels great. I decided to open an Etsy shop and started making clay jewelry and wands because I just played around with it one day and I was like, wait a minute, this feels really good. I want to do this all the time. This feels so right. And I got a whole bunch of other guidance along those lines as well. But just play with things. Don't be afraid. If you encounter something that doesn't work, don't get frustrated. Just let it go and do something else. It really is that simple, right? I mean, that's how we find our paths. And also know that everything that you practice might end at some point, just like relationships, just like jobs. Those things end when you're done with that part of the journey, and other things are going to open up. So like you said, Tiffany, you're always awakening. It's always peeling the onion layers. And as we're learning new things, it might feel amazing. And then someday it might be done. And it might be time for something else. And that is nothing to get frustrated over, because we do go in cycles. Magic a lot is about circles. It's about cycles. It's about, that process of opening up, doing something, and then coming back. And actually, that's the whole tarot Major Arcana journey, is from the Fool to the World. It's the new beginnings all the way through learning, all the way through leadership and teaching, and all of the things that you go through when you're out in the world, and then coming fully back around to a closure. And we go through those cycles all of the time.
It's the constant cycle of basically sunrise, sunset, life, death, rebirth, life, death, rebirth. Like you're always, you know, reinventing yourself. And one thing I want to say about your, about everyone's special gifts is, yes, there's also magical gifts and there's stuff in the magic areas that you might resonate with as well, but you can imbue your magic into everything. Like, don't just think that your special gift has to be like tarot or runes or like, you know, pendulum. Like, sometimes your best magic is your singing voice or like how quick you're able to like I talk about kitchen magic so much and kitchen witchcraft because I think that that's one of the quickest ways to like play around with some of these concepts, especially if you've ever had a home cooked meal by someone you loved and you tried to recreate that and you can't, even with the same recipe and the same ingredients, and you try to like do it with them there, you still can't quite get it because everyone puts their own little bit of magic into cooking when they're cooking for someone with love. Like that's that extra flavor. And so you can imbue your magic into anything, like how someone imbues like love into their cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, on that note, I think that we are out of time. So I just wanted you to share anything that you want to share right now, social media, where can we find you? Obviously, we're going to have you again because we could talk forever.
Oh my gosh, we absolutely could.
We do every week anyway.
Yes, everyone who wants to check out what I'm doing can follow me at www.majorlyarcana.com. Majorly, not just major, like majorly, like tubular, majorlyarcana.com. My Instagram is majorly_arcana, and those are the two places that are going to be your best ways to find me. I'm also on Facebook under the same name, Majorly Arcana, and I've got my own Facebook group called Witches, Witchcraft, and Magic that's connected to my Facebook page, Majorly Arcana. So that's where you'll find me at all the things, and hopefully I'll have more stuff for you soon. I'm currently working on a free downloadable Book of Shadows right now for those who are kind of just getting started into magic. So I'm hoping to release that very soon for all this new wave of witchlings that are coming out.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're here. And for those of you that might be watching this later, watching it on YouTube, listening to it, you can find us at the Magick Grove, which is a Facebook group. It's just Facebook group /Magick Grove. There you can interact with people. We're always sharing knowledge. We're going to be doing this every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, talking about magic. Next week, we're going to be talking about being an empath with Amber Rochelle Huffer, who is another one of my amazing friends. So tune into that, and I will put all of Tiffany's links in the description when we post this. But thank you guys, and we will chat with you soon.